and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. Now, everybody's back at school and we've started, hopefully, seeing a little bit of normality for families. I hope everybody's coping okay and being able to adjust back to try and getting some routine in their lives. The message is obviously still the same. Please stay safe. Please try and continue to social distance, keep sanitizing and wear your masks. So my next guest is one of my favourites, somebody that I've been looking forward to for having on my couch for a very, very long time, especially because she comes from the same industry as I do. And today we almost look identical. She obviously looks a lot younger, but we're made from similar cloth today, the floral cloth. But I think most of you will probably start guessing when I say she's from the same industry as me, and she's somebody that I'm a big fan of her work. I absolutely love some of the reports that she's done for this major news channel. And I think now we are getting a bit more closer to who I'm talking about. But what I love about this girl is she's a Bradford girl, just like me. And today, for the first time, you've all seen her on camera. Now she's on my camera, and this is going to be a no-holds-barred interview with the amazing, super talented media journalist, communities reporter for BBC Look North, Sabbiyah Pervez.
Woo-woo! What an introduction. I was not expecting that. Yeah, thank you. It's made me feel like I've got a massive ego and a big head. But yeah, thanks,
But it is so true. I remember meeting you for the first time, and it was when we were trying to get an interview with you, literally for a programme that you were on, Make Bradford British. And I'm going to start with that before we start talking about your journalism career. But you appeared on that infamous show. Yes.
Let's call it that.
Infamous show, and you were very well known as a Muslim girl from Bradford for, let's say it, pulling pints.
Pulling pints, pervy. But yeah, that was me.
Brilliant. So talk us through it. What made you want to go on the show? How did that happen?
The truth of the matter is, I was graduating at the time. I was unemployed. I had a 10-month-old baby. I was married. And I was just about finishing my degree in philosophy and politics, right? So, and there were no jobs, it was really difficult to get jobs and I wasn't having any luck. So I just thought, what am I going to do with myself? And with a degree like that, it's so difficult because it's social sciences are so difficult to get into anything. And I had started doing like volunteering for BCB. Everybody knows BCB, right? So I started volunteering for them, and then I found out that there's this documentary going on, and the director approached me, or one of their researchers, and said, would you want to do this? And at first, honestly, Fatima, I was like, no, because I did my dissertation on the portrayal of Muslims in the media. Like literally, that was my dissertation. So I knew exactly how kind of Muslims were being portrayed, especially I think post 9/11. And I was very aware of the fact that, I wear a hijab, I'm a practicing Muslim woman. So I didn't want to be that token character that, I thought that they had in mind. And anyway, for the next 6 months, I had conversations with them, and I got to know the director, Hinan Bhatti, really well. And actually, I was really impressed by him. I just thought, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about and he's really clued on. So I agreed to do it. And it was a bit like, you've watched it, everybody's probably, well, most people have watched it. It was a bit like Big Brother and wife swap. But I think like with me, you mentioned that I'm from Bradford, and I grew up in BD5, right? And I like to tell people that I grew up on the streets. And what I mean by that is, my dad, everybody knows my dad, and he ran a corner shop. So my mum and dad were always really busy, and we grew up with our neighbours. And I think what's so distinct when you grow up on streets in BD5 particularly, is that you have this kind of grit, you have this wit, and you have this way about you that you just say it as it is. You just are who you are. So for me, it wasn't about putting on a performance. It was just, this is who I am. I'm loud and I'm proud and I love having fun. And the whole thing about the pub was, I had never been behind a bar before, never, right? I've been in bars, been in pubs, all that stuff, but I'd never actually been behind a bar. And I was very aware as well of kind of the racist tropes that are associated with Muslims and with women of colour and with people of colour. And I remember specifically thinking that day when we were going to film, thinking, okay, let's make this a little bit interesting. I've always been like kind of devil's advocate. So I decided to go in my bright red shalwar kameez. I can't even remember the hijab colour on the head. I think it was red as well, but like this, bold image of red.
Totally stood out.
Yeah, totally stood out. So I went there, and many of the people who were at the pub hadn't seen, they've seen people like me on the streets, but never interacted with people like me. So, and I wanted to have some fun. So I pulled some pints. The machine wasn't working, sadly, but I pulled some pints and I got to know them. And you also saw in that kind of scene that I had a bit of a racial attack and I started crying. And then afterwards, what you don't see is that I confronted them about that. I went back and we talked it out. But I think what was interesting was that it gave me an insight, because for the first time they had met and they had the opportunity to meet somebody that they were just constantly reading about. They were reading about Muslim women and they'd never engaged with it. So they were just throwing all these tropes that they had at me. And I was overwhelmed at first. And until I kind of processed that and went back, I realized actually, if you're constantly reading something about somebody who you don't know, you're going to believe it. I have to give these guys a chance for them to be able to give me a chance. So although the experience overall might have appeared to be negative, visually people might have seen it as a negative. For me, it was flipping brilliant. I loved it. To this day, I don't regret it. It was so much fun.
Amazing. Yeah. Would you say it was the making of you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I went in there very naive. I was very young. I was 19, I think going on 20. Like I said, I had a baby. I was, my husband and I had only been married a year, and I wasn't ready for what was going to come afterwards. Because like I said, like before then, I was quite private in the sense that the only people who knew me were, I had a big family network and family friends who knew me. And I've always been really loud. My family will tell you that. My friends from school will tell you that. My teachers will tell you that. I've always had a positive reaction to that. People find that charming. But for once, I didn't have, overwhelmingly, yes, there was a positive reaction. But then I got this negative back. Honestly, it was so bad. And I wasn't ready for that. It completely floored me. But I think that, looking back at it now, I'm so grateful for that experience, because I think that now, all the stuff that I do with the Bee and all the stuff that I report on, now I'm just like, oh, what? You said what? Oh, so what? People are going to say stuff all the time.
It's helped you deal with things in present day.
Completely. But yeah.
There is a saying, isn't there? People throw bricks at you, build a house with it. You literally have done that.
Oh yeah, I love that. I really did. And that's not to say that, I don't care about, what people's criticisms. And those people who work with me will know, honestly, like every report that I do, every piece of work, I see it as my baby. I'm deeply invested in everything. And I want feedback and I'll take constructive criticism. But what happened after Make Bradford British was a lot of the comments weren't constructive criticism. Like I don't know if I can say
They're
it, but
quite personal.
Yeah, so people were calling me a hojabi. People were saying stuff like, get a rope and tie it around your neck.
Goodness
yeah. People were saying to me, we're going to come and kill you. You've shamed our community. How dare you? But I think, Fatima, what was really interesting, and that's the first time I think I saw it so publicly, is that I think not just non-Muslims, but Muslims have a perception, some Muslims have a set perception and an idea of how they think practicing, when I say practicing, everyone's practicing, you don't know who's practicing, but hijab wearing, visually, hijab wearing Muslim, how they should behave. And I am the like, this is
so you don't conform.
This is that line. My line's like, whoa, over here. And they didn't like that. That makes people uncomfortable. But I just think, Zaki, that's me. You know,
take me or
love me. Yeah. But it's not that I purposely want to make people uncomfortable. It's not that. It's just, this is who I am. Yeah. And I just think it doesn't go, I don't think it goes against my beliefs or my faith. I'm a very deeply faithful woman. But I just think that it makes other people uncomfortable. Yeah. And that's fine. That ain't my problem.
Yeah.
That's yours.
Yeah. But do you think it's because they wanted you to represent, because obviously, as we know in TV, you are going to be the Muslim woman on the show. And when you're representing the Muslim community, they expect a certain kind of representation. And I think, like you rightly said earlier, that this was your first stint on TV and you were very young, very naive.
Yeah.
So you probably didn't weigh up or think about all of these things before going on, or did you?
No. Yes and no. So I
Yeah.
think that in terms of representing the Muslim community, I never claim to do that. Like honestly, I don't represent hijabis.
Yeah.
I don't represent Muslim women, and I definitely don't represent the Muslim community.
You represent Sabbiyah Pervez.
I only represent me, and that's the only thing I can do at my best. I can't claim to represent anybody else because I can't be anybody else. I can only be, like, I know it sounds so like cliche, the best version of myself. Literally, that's all I can be. So and the people said this to me, after Make Bradford British, a lot of people were coming up to me, because we had that argument, me and the guy with the beard,
yeah.
And like, that was another thing that really griped with me, because I'm very big on feminism in Islam. I believe Islam has given so many rights to women. And I felt like that was my opportunity, for me to show that I'm an educated woman, but also Islam has given us so much. And I felt that what he was doing was going again, well, kind of contradicting that. And I felt like I had to stand up for what I believed in, and people had a real gripe with that. And I think this is what I go back to, is that, no, I can't, people saying to me, oh, well, that's not representative of Islam. Where have you learnt that? But I learnt that from, strong Muslim female leaders from Bradford who raised me, who taught me literally at their feet. Many of them, God bless their souls, have lost their lives since then. But these are women who are trailblazers in their own rights. Yeah, they weren't professional career women, but they gave so much to their communities, and those were women that I learned from. So when people are turning around to me and saying, oh, well, you have no authority to say this, I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying it from the backs of women who've worked and fought so hard for these rights. I represent the teachings of those women, and I think that for me, I'm very passionate about that.
Yeah. No, it's quite powerful what you say, actually, in terms of being allowed to be you. And I think you demonstrated that clearly on the show. You were being just you. You didn't think about the consequences. You just thought, this is an opportunity for me to showcase who I am. And I think you did that. It's quite sad to hear that you were obviously attacked in the ways that you have personally for being on that show. But it's amazing how strong you became after that.
Oh yeah, and like
it's
my parents
phenomenal.
will say to you, I never think about consequences.
Yeah.
Now some people will say that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
That you don't think about that. But I am a deeply instinctual person, genuinely. Like, I've been like that since I was a child. If I have a gut feeling that I need to do this, and touch wood, like, all blessings are on God, and I definitely believe that. It's always worked out for me. I think sometimes my view is that sometimes it's good to be broken. I've had moments, so many moments in my life where I have hit rock bottom and I've been absolutely broken, right? But I think that it's only when you get to those points do you really discover yourself. So I'll give you an example. Like, just recently, my grandma passed away, and she, in November, through to COVID, and I had COVID myself, so I couldn't see her or anything like that. And I was, oh my God, I haven't felt that bad in my whole, like, in ages. It's been ages since I felt that horrible. But actually, I know people are going to think this is so crazy, but for me, those moments are actually very cathartic. It's going to sound so bizarre, but I really relish that. I relish those moments where I'm completely vulnerable, because I feel like that's when I get to know my limit. How much can I take? So when people now, Make Bradford British was definitely the stepping stone for me. And there's been other moments in my life that I'm not going to go into here, but like, there's been moments where I've gone through so much, and people say to me, oh, now when they meet me, people who haven't known me all my life, but people now meet me and they say, oh, you're so strong and you just say it how it is. This doesn't come on overnight.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 31.
Yeah.
It's taken 31 years for me, and I've got 3 children to get to where I am. It's absolutely a process.
Yeah. It's a process of not the profession as well. It's a process of your individuality as well, isn't
absolutely.
it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the transition, you were in front of the camera, and this doesn't happen often. It's very rare where you start off in front of the camera and then you become behind the camera, which you are now, working as the communities reporter for Look North. Tell us about that journey, that transition. How did the opportunity come about, and what made you decide at that point that journalism was what you wanted to go into?
I think...
Because it's not a career that as Muslim women, as Asian women, that we get, encouraged to do, is it?
Okay, so that's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
So I think for me, after Make Bradford British, there was all that backlash, and I have always loved writing, and for me, it's always been quite therapeutic, right? Just really cathartic. So I started, I did loads of interviews, and I started writing for people just on that kind of experience. And what I found was that editors were coming back to me and saying, oh, it's had X amount of hits and people really like your voice. You know, there's a fresh perspective here that people are tapping into. And for me, that was just, you know, it was normal. Writing it was natural to me. So I just thought, okay, this is interesting. Let's just try that out for a bit. And I did that. So I set up my own blog. I raised a lot of trouble doing that. I don't know if my mum's going to appreciate me saying this, but Fatima, I remember I'd write blogs and then I'd get like a million phone calls from my mum. Take it down, delete it. What have you written now? Why have you written it? Why do you need to say these things? Like literally all the time.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, Mum, chill out. It's okay. But she'd have people calling her and saying, your daughter's written this. Why has she written this?
Because it is like that for Asian journalists, for journalists like you and me.
Yeah.
You know, we are not just writing for our audience. It's our communities and their families and their relatives. And they have an opinion on everything.
On everything.
So, yeah.
And I think that, again, it goes back to how you look.
Yeah.
I think people feel like they have a right, and they have a right to
over you,
and you don't. You don't have a right over me.
Yeah.
And obviously my parents are different, and I respected what she said. But we also had those conversations. And I think I got to a point where she turned around and she just said to people, she's not going to listen. I've tried with her.
Auntie, you're so right. She's not going to listen this one.
I've tried for like 30 years. This girl doesn't listen. So I think...
but we love you like that.
No, it's good. And it's good. She loves it now. I mean, she loves it now, I say that. But yeah, she does. She loves it now. And she's very proud of me. And I think so that happened a lot. I got into a lot of trouble. And I remember my siblings would say to me, why'd you go through this? You know, every time you cause a nightmare. But, you know, you'll appreciate this. I am very passionate about it. You know, when you come from a city like Bradford and you've come from those streets and you've grown up in these areas, you can't help but be passionate and care about our community, you know, and about the stories of people. And this really wasn't about stories of people. These were my stories. You know, this is what I was growing up and either experiencing myself. So I wasn't saying it as an outsider. I was either experiencing these issues myself, or I knew people very close to me experiencing this, so I could feel their pain. And the only way, you see, this is the thing, is that yes, I was young, and yes, you know, the immature, I don't think I was that immature, but you know, I was young, and there's a sense of immaturity that comes with that. But I think that I still understood, you know, and I think that another thing is that when you're young, or when you're seeing a lot of these issues play out, you tend to feel powerless. Yeah. And I think, especially as a woman, you know, especially you have all of that kind of playing in your head. And I kind of realized after Make Bradford British that my power came from what I wrote with, because that was the only thing that people got irked about. Why did they get irked about it? They got irked about it because suddenly I had a voice and people didn't like what I was saying. And I think for me, is that I'm an antagonist sometimes as well. So, well, back then I really was. I've kind of toned that down a bit now because my views have changed on how you engage with people. But I think back then, the more people, and I think that's just when you're young, the more people who'd call my mum, and my mum would call me, the more I'd be like, right, that's another article going out tomorrow. Literally. But who said it? And my mum would be like, I'm not telling you. So I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you who said it.
Turn it into a story, yeah.
Yeah, so I just turn it into a story.
Yeah.
And that's just how I was, because I recognized that I had this talent.
Powerful tool as well.
And it was a tool, absolutely, it was a tool.
So obviously you started writing for these newspapers, became popular, and then how did Look North happen?
So Look North, I was writing kind of here and again from like the Yorkshire Post and like Guardian, Independent, and then I also, because of my blogs and because they're not controversial, but because they rile people up, and I just spoke my mind, I was invited to a couple of BBC like panels on certain subjects that I was really passionate about. And at one panel, I think it was when the Delhi rape happened. Do you remember that?
Oh gosh,
it was really bad.
Yeah.
Oh, that was really, really bad. And I remember I was at this panel and I was so angry by what had happened. And somebody raised the topic of, Malala Yousafzai and how Malala has kind of done what she's done, an amazing achievement. And they said, oh, well, she's incredibly impressive. How do lives need to be changed here? How, young women's lives. And I remember saying something like, well, 16-year-olds in places like, West Yorkshire, yes, they admire Malala, but she's not going to help them. When they've got their own struggles, they're going to have to find empowerment themselves. And anyway, they loved that, and I got to meet an editor there, and she was the diversity editor, but she was really, she had a very influential role in the BBC. And she started talking to me and said, we need somebody like you at the BBC. And I laughed. I remember.
Really?
I remember coming out of that panel and she was like, oh, Sabbiyah, we need somebody like you at the BBC. And I was like, me at the BBC? Never happening. But it's just because I never seen anybody, with a broad Bradford accent and just hot step and everything. And she said, oh, there's internship coming up through an organisation called Creative Access, and you should go for it. And I was living in Barnoldswick at the time, where my husband's family are, and I was getting a bit kind of itchy in the sense that I wanted to do something. I had 2 young children and I was just getting a bit like, I need to do something now. And so I applied for it, and I remember going in for the interview and just thinking, I ain't going to get this job. There's no way I'm going to get it. And I came out of the interview, and then 2 hours later they said, when can you start? And I was like, oh my God. But for me, it was awesome because I was dying to come back to Bradford. I had 2 young children, and I think I loved Barnoldswick. But for me, it was, I wanted to get my children to understand the role of community. I grew up with this amazing people around me who taught me so much. And I just feel like, honestly, yes, I made myself, and my struggles made me, and everything I've done and my hard work has made me. But this city has made me too. Yeah. And I just feel like being here and living here, it gives you an edge that I know the city does.
It's that phrase that comes to mind, they can take the girl out of Bradford, they can take Bradford out of the girl.
No, never. And I think I wanted my kids, to experience that. And my husband, first when we came here, he was like, I'm only staying here a year. We're only going to stay here. And we did, honestly. We rented this house for a year, and he was like, after a year, we're going back to Bali. We've got a house there and stuff. Yeah. He was like, we're going back there. And I was like, okay. After a year, he loves it. And now we've got a house here. Kids are in school here. Like, we're not going back. Yeah. We're living here, but yeah.
Fantastic. So what was it like doing your first show for Look North?
It was a bit nerve-wracking, I think. What was the first one? I think the first one was Brotherly Politics.
Was it? Oh my God, I remember. You had me and Ratner doing a conversation.
Yes. Do you remember Ratner? God bless her soul. Yeah. So, that was the first one.
Was that your very first one?
That was my first one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it was when that Amina Ali stood down. Yeah.
What a way to get in. What a story to come on.
Yeah, and it was brilliant because I knew all about it. We were living it. Yeah. And I had you there, and what I mean, I had these amazing women for my debut. We did though. We absolutely were. It was awesome, and that was my first one, and that was it. Wow. And then I think that year it was just really bonkers, because 2014, obviously, it was all that stuff was going on with politics, and then we had the grooming stuff that was going on, and then I think all that ISIS stuff, you know, a lot of young people in Yorkshire particularly leaving to join ISIS in Syria. So I think it was just a really busy year for me. And then after the year, I just got made, well, I applied for the job for Communities Reporter, and I got made permanent, and that was it. The rest is
history, as they say.
The rest is history.
But you covered some pretty big topics just as a, you know, going on this internship, and you know, that's pretty big stuff for a new journalist to get their head round.
But I think this is the thing, is that although I was a new journalist, I was experienced in these issues in real life. Yeah, that's it, in real life. So although I'd only at that point been at the BBC for 5 months, I'd lived in the community all my life. You know, I knew people. And the reason why I knew people was because either through my writing or through the work that they did, or through family. You know, and I think for me, when I went into the BBC, I was so passionate, and I am still very passionate about giving a voice to authentic, you know, the authentic voice, and making sure that we hit the streets, you know, hear from the normal people. Because it wasn't about Look North. I just felt like generally TV, when I turned it on, I didn't feel like it connected. Like, you know, for example, like I said to you earlier, like I was raised by these incredible women, people like Nusrat Ali, God bless her soul, who's, you know, we've recently lost. People like Ratna, you mentioned Ratna, you know, Ratna again was another great mentor and supporter of my work. You know, so these are women who really helped me and supported me. Now, to the outside, if you told somebody I was raised by tremendous Muslim and non-Muslim women, they'd think, oh, okay, but I thought, you know, Asian women and women of colour are like this. But the women that I knew were challenging all of these kind of status quos and these misconceptions. So I think for me, it was about giving a voice to those people who you don't hear from normally, but who were a part of my life. They were normal to me.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about your reporting, and that's why I told you that I'm a big fan of your work, because normally, historically, whenever I've looked at a report on TV or even in the press, it's always the same voices that get called to comment. And what I love about what you do is you've always had different voices on. And, you know, I remember getting, you know, having conversations with you, and you say, you know, I've had these people on before, and they've commented, I want somebody different, I want somebody new, I want somebody from within the grassroots communities. I remember a time with BBC where people from the community used to call me and say, the BBC have asked us to come on. And there was a hesitancy that, shall we go on? They were asking me that. Now people come to me saying, guess what? Sabbiyah's coming to film us. Sabbiyah's, you know, she's amazing. That trust is there. You've built that trust with the community, and they're quite happy coming to you and talking to you. Doesn't matter how controversial the topic might be. How did you manage to achieve that?
Honestly, it took so much time, like so much time and so much work. And this is why it's important. I think that the passion is important. But passion is nothing without hard work, right? It opens the door for you, but it doesn't get you through the door. You have to walk towards people. And Mohsin, my husband, will attest to this, and my kids will tell you this as well, that the first 3 years of me, I've been there now 6 years, first 3 years of being at Look North, I was working pretty much 7 days a week. I was working all hours. I may not physically have been in the office all those days, but what I mean is that even on a Saturday, Sunday, I'd be making calls. So, and that's because, you know, people didn't have trust because things had happened in the past, right? Or because they were scared about how they'd be kind of perceived, or how the editing would be done and how it'd be narrated. And I think a lot of that was kind of convincing people that actually this is your story. This isn't about me, you know, it's your story, and my job is to somehow tell your story so the person who's watching, who doesn't know anything about it, understands. And that's what it is. And honestly, I see this as my work, is that I'm just a narrator. You know, I weave the threads, but everybody else, let them take ownership of it. You know, I like to play as little role as possible when it comes to my reports, because I just think that's my role. Yes, I'm there to ask questions, and I'm there to kind of expose issues or raise awareness, or, you know, whatever it is at the news, you know, we're there to do in terms of let people do it, kind of inform people. But I think the rest is, if you're telling people and you're inviting people on, let them own it. And I think that what happened is that once I started doing a couple, people saw that as proof.
Yeah.
And I think that was important, that I had to do a couple first, and people had to see that actually we can trust this girl.
Yeah.
But, you know, it didn't happen overnight. It took, you know, for example, I remember that in the early days, it took me something like 2 weeks to persuade somebody to come in front of a camera. And you see, you can't underestimate that. Some people might watch this and think, wow, 2 weeks just to come on the BBC. But what you have to understand is that, you know, people are giving you a lot. When they agree to come on camera, not only are they giving you their trust, but they're sharing something with you that sometimes is deeply personal. And I think for me, it's about having that burden of responsibility, you know, knowing that this person has given me something that, and many of the people, like you say, many people that I speak to now have never engaged with media before. So it's about, they're giving you something and you're taking something from them. It's like an investment, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they're investing in you, you have to prove to them that investment is worth it. And that's how I see it. You see,
You have to give them a return on their investment.
I come from a business family. So that's how, you know, and that's pretty much it. And I think, and for me, this is, and I say this a lot, and I said this to my BBC bosses right when I started, is that, you know, now I see the kind of the value of my dad's corner shop. And I'll tell you why. So I was a little girl, you know, when we were living 5, 6, 7, up until the age of 10, we were living in that corner shop. And it's greengrocers, but I was there frequently a lot. And you know, those people skills that I learned there, I'm telling you, that's what's come in handy now in journalism, because it's that whole thing about you are catering to people, you give them what they want, you listen, you shut up and you listen.
Yeah, and in those days, corner shops acted like community centres, didn't they? Because my childhood is the same as yours. I grew up in a corner shop as well. Grocery at the front and butchers at the back. And then we had a newsagent as well, so just to deliver newspapers. But yeah, I completely resonate with you in that sense. What is different between you and I, though, is the visibility of you wearing a hijab when you go out and you're on TV. I'm on a pen behind some paper, so people can't see me. What is it like to be a journalist in today's era where representation has suddenly become so important, to be on TV wearing a hijab and to be a woman of colour and to be from Muslim background? What is that like right now for you?
Okay. So, you know, it's interesting you say this. So it's like we're coming full circle. So you said at the beginning, you know, with Make Bradford British, who were you representing? You know, people thought they had ownership of me because they saw me and immediately assumed, oh, we've got somebody, we've got one of us, we've got a hijabi, we've got a Muslim, we've got a Pakistani girl, we've got a Bradfordian. She's going to do us right. Now, I don't deny that. I will, you know, I'll do you right or whatever you claim that I will do. But I can only be responsible for my own actions. I can only represent myself. And people always ask me this, you know, what's it like to be a hijabi on camera, working for the nation's biggest broadcaster? What's it like? And honestly, it's normal. It's life. For me, it is, honestly, it's so normal now. I don't want to sound kind of flippant.
When you say normal, I mean, I've heard stories where some presenters, I mean, there was one in Leicester, I think, who went to do a report, and the person she went to do the report on refused to be interviewed by her because of who she was, because she was brown. I don't know if you remember that story.
Oh, yeah. But I've not.
Have you ever had anything?
No. So I've had occasions where I've talked to somebody over the phone, and then I rock up and I see their faces change because they're not expecting what they see. But, you know, I get odd, you know, racist comments, odd. But even then, it's, you know, it's not massive. I get more fan mail. Like, I'm not.
I told you.
I'm not fan mail. I don't want to call it fan mail.
You will.
But I get more. Like, I was laughing. I was showing my husband the other day. I got an email from one of our viewers, and he was like, "You're so fit looking, and you know, excellent reporter, blah blah blah." And we were laughing about it together.
Yeah.
My husband's great. He's my rock. Honestly, biggest supporter. Couldn't be where I am without my family. But like, you know, I have those kind of comments. And I was out in Batley when the PM came and these women, old women, were getting the vaccine done.
Yeah.
White British women. And it was such a heartwarming moment. because they were stood in queue and we were waiting for the PM to come out, and they came up to me and they said, "Oh, we love how you drape your scarf. We love it." And you see, Fatima, for me, it's so important to focus on that. You know, everybody's different. I don't want people to think that there is no negativity. Yes, there is. But you see, my personality is such that I prefer to reflect joy. Like, I am just buzzing. You know, you probably see it in me. I'm constantly buzzing. I'm high on energy. Yeah. And when I get some of the rubbish, it's like, oh, suck it. Someone's having a bad day or whatever. Leave them to it. Yeah. I'm not going to let it disrupt me. I'm not going to let it, you know, get in my way. I'm doing my thing. I'm working hard. And I think that people see that. But also, you know, with our audience, I think if you have a laugh, if they get to see a little bit of you, and I like to think that I am, you see me and you get who I am. Do you understand? Like, I don't hide anything. Like, I did this, the best kind of reports that I've done over the past year was I was on a weekend reporting shift when Leeds United got promoted.
Oh, wow, right? Yes, they did.
And on the Friday before, I was told, oh, you're going to be doing this. And I've never done a football piece. I hate football. And I was thinking, oh, my God, how am I going to cover this?
It's a huge story for fans.
And it's a huge story for Look North, huge story for our region. And I was thinking, oh, my God, I have to tell this story. Yeah. And I did my research, spoke to a diehard fan, acted like I knew what I was talking about. Yeah. And I had so much fun. I was there, you know, in the crowds, and it was brilliant. And somebody emailed in and said, I would have mistaken you for a fan, you know, whilst I was reporting. And I think for me, it's just where I can. It's just be myself. Yeah. And if people don't like that because of the colour of my skin or because of what I wear, or, you know, the faith that I represent, well, the faith that I am proud to represent in that sense, that's their problem. It's not going to stop me. It really isn't.
Amazing. Well, I just want to say we love you for who you are.
Thank you.
Still stay the way you are. Stay amazing. And you know what? I could talk to you for ages, for hours.
I know.
But it's a shame that it's obviously only a half an hour slot.
It's been awesome. Thank you for having me.
We could have a series of you. We could have day 1, day 2.
I don't think so. No.
I think we could.
No,
definitely.
I think I've had to be quite controlled in what I say. I don't.
You did very well. Very well. Like I said to everybody at the beginning, this is a no holds barred interview, and you certainly gave.
No, but thank you.
That. But thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. No,
it's been honestly. I've been waiting to sit on this yellow sofa. I'm waiting for my turn, and I've had it, and it's just been awesome. It's weird because it's so weird. Like yesterday, on the way here, because my husband dropped me off, and I was like, oh, it's been a long time since I've been interviewed, you know, and it feels so weird. And suddenly you feel really nervous. And I turned to him and I was like, oh, God, Mustin, this is why I'm normally like, when people are like, oh, Sabbiyah, we're a bit nervous. I'm like, why are you nervous? Yeah. But now I empathize. You know, it's like, quite nerve-wracking. But you've been brilliant. No, thank you, honestly. It's been awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, and all the best with everything.
Thank you.